Hello and welcome to the Eye on the U podcast, the Miami Herald's Miami Hurricanes podcast. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined this week on the other line by Michelle Kaufman, our Hurricanes beat writer at the Herald, joining us from beautiful Albany, New York. Michelle, how are things going up there? It's tournament time. There's some snow on the ground. Spring has sprung. What's it
I
like
don't
up
know
there?
about spring. I wouldn't say spring. It's very much winter. I have my parka. It stopped snowing. It is sunny out, but it's very cold. I mean, it's 38 degrees and windy. So it's cold. I would not say it's spring, but it's nice. It's the state capital
Yep.
and state capital of New York. And the arena is called MVP Arena, and it's right in the middle of downtown. It's where Siena plays, Siena College. So
Yep.
it's one of those arenas where you can just walk from the hotels and the restaurants. You can walk to the arena. So it might be kind of a fun atmosphere that, Indiana, I'm sure will travel well, and maybe some of the other teams too.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see how Miami fans turn out. But obviously, we've got a lot of story. I mean, Miami is one of the teams that's kind of surrounded by one of the big storylines going into the weekend, obviously, with the status of Norchad Omier. Definitely one of the big injuries. A lot of people are monitoring. Actually, that little section of the bracket has a lot too, because Houston's Marcus Sasser, number one seed up there, another one of those key injuries. We're recording this, we should say, Wednesday evening. So they will practice Thursday, might have a clearer picture on what exactly Norchad Omier's availability will be between now and tip off. Although I would guess they're gonna probably be vague, because that's what college coaches tend to do with injuries. But he was out there today. A little bit of practice was open to people before they traveled up to Albany, and he was out on the court stretching, shooting a little bit. I think some people have pointed out not really walking with much of a limp. So seems like a positive development. Again, noting that a lot of things can change and you're going to have people will have a much better sense of his status when we get closer to tip off. Just what's the latest there? What's the sense that you get about A, whether he will be available for round one, and B, if he is, like, I don't know, where is he on like a percentage wise? I don't need to put a specific percentage, but what's the sense that you're getting right now about where he is at in terms of availability and strength?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Coach Larinaga been around the block a few times, so he's not going to reveal too much. He's going to be pretty cagey. He all he did is stretch and shoot. I do believe that tomorrow he's going to try to actually practice. They have a practice around 1 o'clock tomorrow. I will be there. And we're going to have a much better sense, if he can cut, if he can run, if he can jump. Shooting and stretching are very different, which Coach Al pointed out and said, if it was a stretching contest or a shooting contest, I'm sure he'd do fine. But we're not sure if he can run. We're not sure if he can jump. I think the fact that he's even on his feet and participating in any way in the practice is more than I thought it was going to be at this point. And I would not be surprised if maybe they would hold him unless he's really just has a miraculous recovery, but maybe they would try to play without him for Drake, and then make sure, if it's possible that he could play for Indiana.
Yeah.
That's the game where they really, really need a big man.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They need a big man. And, with Trace Jackson Davis, it will be very hard for anybody on Miami's roster to handle him anyway. But with Norchad, they have a chance with him. So I could see maybe if he's okay to dress, maybe they dress him for Drake, but just hold him. And then if they don't need him, and if they could win without him, fine. If they do decide they need him, they could try to put him in. I don't know. I just don't think we know yet, but the fact that he's walking, the fact that he was at practice, the fact that he's going to try to have a full practice tomorrow, those are all positive signs. And that is a really, really big story on all the brackets. I mean, there are so many skeptics now. There were already skeptics. People were getting a little skeptical because the collapse against FSU.
Yeah.
Miami lost 2 of its last 4 games. and the wins that they had were, in the final possession. So
Yeah.
they,
A lot of the
they were
metrics
not
are not
dominating
great
the
for
way they
Miami
were.
necessarily. But yes, yeah, and obviously that comes in. I think, this is probably a good chance to quickly talk about the ACC tournament, which we talked about which we previewed a little bit last week. Omier gets hurt in that Duke game very early in that Duke game in the first couple of minutes. And Miami still went blow for blow with Duke, had a real shot to win that game to the end, kind of were down 4 the entire second half, could never quite get over the hump. If they win that game, I think that probably changes the perception a lot of Miami. If they get that rep then as, well, not just only,
it's
maybe
just,
they win the ACC tournament, but you get that rep as you're the tough team that can win without your star. But honestly, that was a really encouraging performance. It's a reason why, looking at this Drake game, no matter Omier's availability, I've not seen a lot of people picking that as the 5-12 upset necessarily. I think people really have a lot of belief in Jim Larinaga and Isaiah Wong, and just the program and the way that they've played. They've won obviously a lot of close games, probably some close games that shouldn't have been close games, but still they've been good. They've been competitive against everyone, right? They've not been, I think, probably count on a couple fingers how many times they've been kind of beaten
No, they really haven't
handily
been
this
blown
year.
out. This
Not
year,
very often.
right. They had big runs, big streaks, big
Yeah.
win streaks. No, they were very consistent. It's just, the last 4 games were very, very tight. And,
Yeah.
Losing Omier has some people skeptical. I have seen some people picking Drake, to beat them, but I don't know. I still think Miami, even if Omier can't play, I still see them beating Drake.
Yeah, and I think they have to have a ton of confidence. Just, yeah, they would be confident no matter what. I think that's a confident bunch. And Jim Larinaga, again, his teams never tend to lack confidence, even when they've had some rough years, right? But the fact that Omier goes out and they still took Duke all the way to the wire, can't really ask for
Duke
much
team,
more, right?
right.
Like that,
Exactly. And this is a Duke team that a lot of people are picking now to make the Final Four.
I know, yeah.
Make the Sweet
They're like the
16,
hottest.
make the Final
They're
Four,
the
Elite
hottest
Eight.
team in the country, right? And Miami,
They're the
without
hottest
their
team, right?
second
They're the
best
hottest team,
player,
and
should have probably
Miami,
beaten them, or easily could have
right.
beaten them.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Duke is the hottest team right now, or one of the hottest teams. Everyone is high on Duke right now. Miami came very close without Norchad Omier, very close with Duke. So I don't know if you saw, but the put out a tweet,
Yeah.
like a little video thing. It's like a little video, kind of the underdog theme that they're now. So that's kind of like their new thing, their little motto. You didn't pick us before, so why start now? Don't pick us.
Yeah.
It's like all the players and even Coach L saying, don't pick us, don't pick us. You didn't pick us before, don't pick us now. So, I think most, a lot of people still, it's like, show me, show me, show me, they're not convinced. A lot of people are not convinced. A lot of people are still skeptical, is the word I would use, of UM basketball. Even with all that they've done, they still sort of have to prove themselves. But I think they're going to kind of use that as a motivator. I think they're, that whole no respect kind of thing. Even though they've gotten more respect this year than before with Isaiah Wong getting player of the conference and all that.
All American, he's popping up
I
on
do
all these
think
All
still
American
at the end of the day, yeah, he's doing really well on the All American list. They're getting more respect than they did before. But all in all, people are still a little bit afraid to pick Miami to go deep.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into our overall picks a little bit later. I mean, I understand that skepticism, but let's start just specifically with the Drake game. Michelle, tell me about Drake. I don't know a whole lot about them. That was an easy, I knew pretty much no matter who Miami was playing, I was going to write them right into round 2 at least. I did not spend a whole lot of time thinking about Drake when I went and made my pick on my bracket. But what have you learned about them?
Right. Well, I've learned, for one thing, I did know, the only thing I really knew about him is that the Drake Relays is the most famous Drake sporting event, which is, this track and field meet that's been going on since the year 1906. And like Carl Lewis ran in there, and Jesse Owens, and so they have a great track tradition. But I also did learn that they do have some basketball lore. They made the Final Four in 1969, and they lost by only 3 points to UCLA, Lou Alcindor, and John Wooden. It was a really close game. They came down to 1 point. And that team was really, really good. The 1969 Final Four team of Drake. But in more recent years, their coach is really good. Darian DeVries, this coach, he was named as, a lot of people were mentioning him as like maybe to take over Notre Dame or to take over some of these other openings. He's kind of a hot name now for,
Yeah, he
he
was
may
a
not be a
Creighton
Drake
assistant for
after
a
this.
long time, like 20 years
Longtime Creighton
almost. Yeah.
assistant. Yeah, I don't know how long he'll be at Drake, but he's had 5 years, and all 5 years he's had 20 plus wins, 5 years in a row. They're 27-7 this year, 13-1 in their last 14 games. They've only lost one of their last 14 games. And one of the wins was they upset Bradley in the Missouri Valley Conference final. They won the championship over Bradley. Their conference player of the year is the coach's son. His name is Tucker DeVries. He's a 6'7" sophomore, really, really good shooter. I mean, he's a catch and shoot shooter. He's not like the most athletic guy. So, I mean, I think the Miami players will be more athletic, but he's a really, really good shooter. Conference player of the year. He averaged 18.9 points. He had 32 points twice this season. He put up 32 points. So, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
Then they've got some veteran players who have been around for a long time. They've got this guy, Roman Penn, who's like 25 years old. And they have another big guy. Everyone's talking about the IU big guy, but they have a big guy too, Brody, who's 6'10" and 275. So that's another one where, without having Omier, that's a really big, hefty body, 275 pounds, 6'10". So they have some size, they have experience, they're very good shooters, and their coach has really, really been good.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be an easy, I don't think it'll be
5-12s
an easy matchup,
never are. It's not like they're a 3 seed, right? When you're 5 seed, you're favored, but you get a tough matchup. So yeah. And I'll tell you the one thing, other than obviously the Omier injury, if he's hurt, like it changes everything. Like if he can't go at all, changes everything. But the father-son thing freaks me out in the tournament, right? How many times Valparaiso, obviously, with the Drews. I always think of RJ Hunter when I can't remember who they beat that year at Georgia State. And a lot of times when it's a mid-major and there's a coach's son, like go look up the recruiting profiles. Those guys a lot of times are overqualified for that level. Tucker DeVries he was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. So like you said, not the more of a catch and shoot guy, but that guy was a guy who had, he had a Creighton offer. He had Iowa State. He had a Florida offer. Like he went to play for his dad. At
he
Drake.
wanted to play for his dad.
Yeah.
He could have played a lot of places, and he wanted to play for his dad. So he's a very, very good player. I mean, he's the conference player of the year. He's only a sophomore. So he's going to be, they're going to have to definitely be on the lookout for him. It's not going to be an easy matchup, but I think that Miami has overall better athleticism, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like Miami, the story of their season is they get in shootouts and they win shootouts. And this feels like it kind of has the makings for another one of them. Could definitely be one of the more fun games, I think, of the first weekend. Would not be surprised if this is one of the highest scoring games of the first weekend. Again, I think Miami, between Isaiah, Jordan Miller, Nigel Pack, Wooga Poplar has been playing better. Like, they've got the horses that they should be able to beat a team like Drake, but obviously it's March and not Omier's status will affect a lot. But again, Miami was a team I've liked all year.
It affects them, right? It affects them emotionally too, because just the players. If he gets to play, it's an emotional lift.
Yeah.
If he's just sitting on the bench, deep down inside, the players they can't help it. I'm sure they will feel like it's going to be a bigger job without him. And if he does get to play, they'll get an emotional lift. So it is a pretty big factor, that one player, because he's the only big guy, really, he's the main presence inside. The guards, if one guard can't go, there's other guards that can fill in, but there's really nobody who plays the way he does.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key point of this, right? I said when he got hurt, I saw a lot of Miami people being like, that's Miami's best player, that's Miami's most important player, like whatever you wanted to say. He's not their best player. Like Isaiah Wong's their best player, but he's their most important player. He's the most irreplaceable player certainly on the team. And
Yes,
again,
absolutely.
when you talk about the emotions, that's why I think playing well against Duke was really important. You know, if he gotten hurt and they had lost that game by 20 points, you know, I wouldn't be feeling
That'd have
great
been
about
very
this team.
deflating.
With whether or
Yeah,
not
I
they
don't
were
think they
feeling
were
good about it.
deflated.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
not. They feel like I'm sure they came out of that game feeling like they were better than Duke and should have beaten Duke. And you know, it'll be. I think the ACC has I would say, sort of been disrespected, right? I mean, they kind of have been thought of not as great all year. What the highest seeded ACC team is Virginia as a 4 seed. I cannot remember that ever happening before. Maybe it
No.
happened last year. I don't remember how high the highest seeded team was, but then
Well,
it's the same.
North Carolina.
Well, they were an 8 seed, and
Yeah.
I guess Duke was I think seeded pretty highly.
Duke was a
But
high seed. Yeah,
yeah,
Duke was a high seed.
I think they were a 2 seed. But so the ACC was kind of disrespected all year long. This will be, you know, the tournament obviously can change everything. Last year, the ACC was kind of disrespected and then had 2 teams in the Final Four and like 5 teams in the Sweet 16 and 3 teams in the Elite 8. Like, you know, it's always hard to judge until you get to March, and even March is not the best indicator. But you know, if the ACC is better than people think, Miami shouldn't have a problem with Drake. But again, it's really hard to predict when there's so many unknowns, and then also obviously the unknown of like Drake has never played a team, you know, hasn't played a team like Miami. Probably Miami hasn't played a whole lot of teams like Drake, and then the unknown of what this team will look like with either without Norchad or with him limited to whatever capacity he will be.
Right.
Let's kind of move on to the bigger preview of the region. You mentioned Indiana. That is, I think, a lot of people, when you obviously, when you're a 4 or 5 seed, you immediately kind of look to what's that next game, right? How you carve out the path to how do you get to the Final Four. That Indiana game, you mentioned Trace Jackson Davis. That's we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that's if I'm worrying about whether Miami can make a run, to me, it's that Indiana game. If they can get past Indiana, if they can get past the first weekend, you get Omier a little bit more time to get healthy. I think they can compete with anyone else they would run into. The Indiana thing scares me a little bit because Trace Jackson Davis is, probably the second best big man in the country behind Zach Edey. But
he's
without
definitely
Omier, without Omier, it'll be a real
right
problem.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of player, if they were playing a team with a bunch of small, quick guards, that's different. But having a guy like him, 21 points, 11 rebounds, lefty, really just a dominant force.
And a vet. He's 23 years old. Like, it's not like he's just, Miami's strength for so much of the last couple of years has been their experience, and they kind of don't have that on a team like Indiana.
Right. Yeah. So it's that's gonna be a tough challenge, even with Omier, that's a tough challenge.
Yeah.
Even with
it's not a great matchup either way, because as you mentioned, like Trace Jackson Davis is gonna take 18 shots or something, right? And that means a lot of defense that Miami's centers are gonna have to play and potentially foul trouble, all that kind of stuff. So when I look at the bracket and think about who can come out of the region, like Indiana was a team. I mean, I've kind of liked Indiana all year long because I'm a big fan of Trace Jackson Davis, but the Indiana Miami matchup is one that on paper is not great for Miami. But again, I mentioned Miami. How many times have they? I wish I should pull their schedule up, but like as we mentioned, they have not had a lot of games where they've been blown out.
No, and they've played with everybody, and they've beaten. They have a lot of quality wins. It kind of makes them very unpredictable in the tournament. Where again, like because they're in a 5-12 matchup, that's a pretty ripe upset spot. Yeah, Miami only has one. Kind of crazy. I didn't realize that only one loss by more until actually the Duke loss was their second biggest loss of the season. Before that, they'd only had one loss bigger than 3 points or 4 points. Yeah,
6 points. So
6 points.
yeah,
Yeah, that's nothing. I mean, that's not, they didn't have any slip ups. I mean, most
right.
teams slip up every now and then,
Yeah.
and they really didn't. They've been so
Yeah. The
consistent.
closest thing they had was the Florida State game, right?
The
Because Florida
Florida
State's
State
really
game,
bad.
that was a
And even
disaster.
that they
Yes.
lost by, yeah, one. So like, so to me, that makes Miami a very tough team to predict. Obviously, the very nature of the tournament is it's unpredictable. Again, I went right away and wrote I did not hesitate with them in the Drake matchup. Again, as we've noted, Drake's not, Drake's pretty good, 12 seed, some talent, really good coach. But like I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have Omier, I'd be a little surprised if they beat Indiana just because I do not think that's a good matchup. But if they're fully healthy, like or even if Omier can give them 18 minutes or something against Indiana, like there's no one in the field that I feel like is like clearly better than them necessarily. I don't know if
What
they're
about
good enough.
Houston?
Yeah, I mean,
You're not
Houston
a
is
big
the number
Houston.
one team in the country in Ken Palm.
Yeah.
And they have their guys hurt too. Marcus Sasser hurt his
Yeah.
hand. I mean, Houston's obviously really good and very good defense, kind of a contrast in some ways with Miami. They're always a great defensive team. I'm not, I'll tell you, I don't have Miami going to the Final Four, but the way that they play, like, I mean, it's kind of the same thing they did last year, right? They could beat anyone, they could lose to anyone. That's
Yeah.
been a lot of
And
ways the story
they
of
were
their
beating
season.
Kansas. They were beating Kansas at halftime.
Yeah, yeah,
Which no one would have predicted either. No one predicted that team was going to make the Elite Eight. They weren't even ranked the entire season. They were never ranked once.
yeah.
So I think that's why that little motto they have, you didn't pick us before. Don't pick us now. Let us go do our thing. And don't pick us. It's okay.
And the injury does kind of like set them up perfectly to like lean into that, because anyone who had a reason to be skeptical, and again, there are reasons, the ACC was down this year. They've had, every game is close. That's not typically how you like, we were watching it with the Miami Heat, right? Like they play close games every night. You're going to lose some of those, and they've lost to some bad teams because of that. And again, like a lot of their defense is not good. A lot of they're not highly ranked in the net or Ken Palm or a lot of these predictive measures. And the Omier injury, if you're skeptical of them, it gives you the perfect reason to write them off. But I still like him in the Drake matchup. I don't like him as much in a hypothetical Indiana matchup. Do you do a bracket? I'm curious. Like it's hard when you cover the team, right? You don't want to pick against them.
I did a bracket. I did a bracket with my daughter. We did a family bracket. And it's always for my daughter, especially, who went to Duke and also loves Miami. Miami is her first, that was her first love. And then she was a Duke student. So that sort of overrides the UM. But her dilemma is always picking what she wants to happen versus picking what she thinks will happen. And she wants to pick her teams to go really, really deep. Anyway, this year she decided to be bold and pick Duke to go all the way to the championship game and lose to Houston, by the way.
Okay, there you go. So she's got Houston over Miami then.
She's got Houston. Yes. But she picked Miami. She and I, with my input, we both picked together. We picked Miami to beat Drake and to beat IU, which is a reach. I thought it was kind of a reach, but we decided, she said, let's just be bold and do it, because otherwise it's boring.
Well, I'll say
all the favorites,
I'll say all year I thought, when I was watching Miami, I thought this is a second weekend team, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's obviously the tournament is all about matchups, and again, the injury hangs over everything, but that's why I feel like, if Miami could go out in round one, certainly, because that defense is not that good, and that the defense is the reason it's very hard to imagine them going all the way. Like teams with that deep, with a defense as lowly ranked as Miami, I think it would be unprecedented. Like I don't know for sure, but very, very rare that a team that does not have a excellent defense wins at all. But they could certainly string together 3, 4, 5 wins and get pretty deep in this tournament. That is a pretty open tournament. I mean, I'm looking at my bracket right now. I don't have any 1 seeds in the Final Four. Like obviously I'm going out on a limb there, but like
who do you have? Who do you
Well,
have?
I got UCLA winning it all. I thought all year they're the best team in
Oh,
the
wow.
country.
Okay.
Alabama, Baylor, like I went back and forth a million times on that one, and it might flip flop again. I like Creighton out of that region too, but
What did you think about Marquette? Do you like
no,
Marquette?
I saw a stat that teams that were unranked in the preseason and wound up being top 2 seeds have never made the Final Four, and typically
Oh,
don't even make it out of the first weekend, or don't make it past the Sweet 16. And both Purdue and Marquette fall into that criteria, which is why, I mean, you mentioned a lot of people. Duke has become a trendy pick. Like Kentucky would have surprised. Like I know they've been a kind of a mess all year, but they're a 6 seed, and all of a sudden that region looks very winnable. That's the one I have no idea what to do with that region. And then I
and you
went with
like UCLA. You
with
like you.
I like UCLA, and then I went with Texas out of Miami's region.
Okay.
So
Yeah, Texas is good. I think Texas is a good pick.
yeah, I think again it's really wide open. I mean Miami is probably not quite. I think every year you go in and you say how many teams can win it all. I think this year people would probably go like 10 deep almost. Alabama, all the top 2 seeds I think are certainly in play. And then, Baylor, I think just won the championship 2 years ago. They've got some of that cachet still built up.
Yeah, and the Final Four is in Houston. The
Yeah,
Final Four is in
exactly.
Houston. So,
Gonzaga's a
there's all
pretty
these
city.
Texas schools. The
Yeah,
Texas schools
exactly.
are going to have home court
But
advantage.
Miami's probably not in that tier of like if you went through and just were like in this how many teams do you think could win the title? Probably not quite, but they're in that next group, and if wackiness happens, then they've certainly got a shot, and they make things wacky, right? Miami is kind of a tailor-made like you fall in love with them team because they're going to score 85 points a game.
Yeah. And you never know if Nigel Pack all of a sudden hits,
Yeah.
6 threes in a row, or you know what I mean? He can be very streaky, and Wooga Poplar showed that he can also be streaky with the 3. So who knows?
Yeah. That's why I
Who
think
knows?
they're like nothing that happens to them this weekend would surprise me. I think a championship would surprise me, but a long run would not surprise me. And just because 5-12, there's usually at least one of those upsets, and usually 2 in the tournament. Like that's not a great spot to be in, especially when your centers is hurt. But nothing would surprise me this weekend. Hopefully we get to see Norchad Omier. I think if he is healthy, that Indiana potential matchup would be really, really fun. So hopefully we get it.
The thing with that matchup is he has had, and he's gotten better at it. He's worked at it, but he does get in foul trouble. He has had a habit of getting in foul trouble. And against a big guy like that, the thing is, Norchad he's so big and strong that he doesn't move, like he doesn't budge. When guys slam into him, he's like a tree trunk and he doesn't move. So they don't get calls against him, but he has a tendency to get some fouls, and he's been trying and been, studying that about himself and trying to be better, which he has. He's much better now than he was at the start of the season of that. But if he picks up a couple of quick fouls against a big guy, he's going to have to sit down for half the game, so it's going to be a challenge for him.
Yeah, just for his sake, I hope he gets to play, because he's been one of the great stories, one of the great underrated stories in college basketball this year. I mean, from day one, it was kind of clear that he was. I think we actually, even when they transferred, we were pretty excited about him because he was what conference is Arkansas State? Are they A-Sun? That he was conference player of the year there, right?
Sun Belt. He was Sun Belt player of the year.
Comes over
player of the year, the first Nicaraguan ever to play in college basketball ever, Division I.
Yeah, and he came over to Miami, and right away the coaching staff was like, they weren't being shy about hyping him up necessarily. Obviously,
and he's got such a magnetic personality.
Yeah, he's got his catchphrase.
Baby food. He's got a big smile. He's just a fan favorite from day one. He was from day one, favorite.
From the preseason. Honestly, it was like from the preseason before there was even a game. So I really hope he gets to play.
And you kind of want to see. I mean, in March, you hate to see a team not be able to play to their fullest potential. You want to see all the teams at their best. You want all these injured guys to be able to play, because it would be just a shame, them, Houston, whoever's injured, it would really be a shame for the whole season to play so well all season and so consistent all season, and then because of an injury not to really show what they can do. So I really do hope, for his sake and the team's sake and the fans, that everybody gets to see the teams at their best.
Yeah. I'll say my one prediction for this weekend, stressful game one. I don't think it's going to be easy no matter what. As you said, not a lot of blowouts either way for Miami this year. So I'm not expecting anything different.
All their games have been, it comes down to the wire. It comes down to the wire. And this Tucker guy is, he's good. He's good. And he's, very, very good shooter. They're going to have to really play some good defense on him. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but we'll see. I'm excited. They're practicing tomorrow at around 1:00. So I'll be there and I'll shoot some video and put it up on Twitter right away, so everybody can start guessing and assessing.
Yeah. It'll be lot of like Zapruder filming whatever clips we get of Norchad Omier in practice on Thursday. But I guess that'll all be old news by the time people are listening to this. Anyway, if you are listening to this ahead of tip-off, be sure to follow Michelle Kaufman on Twitter. She's at Kauf Sports. She's up in Albany with your coverage of the entire weekend. Hopefully a multi-day affair for the Canes, and hopefully we'll see even a little bit more, because again, this team has been really fun all year, and it would be a shame for them to go out because of something that's ultimately kind of beyond their control. Follow me on Twitter at DB Wilson 2. I'll be tweeting about the tournament because I like watching the NCAA tournament, and it's the best time of year, as we've said a lot of times. So I'm very excited for this weekend, very excited for that Miami Drake matchup, and very, very excited for a potential Miami Indiana matchup if we get there. So thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.